Journaling is said to boost health and well being as it lowers your brain's reactions, helps reduce stress, and is a great way to process emotions. My life has been such a roller coaster the past few months, and so I wanted to try incorporating journaling into my routine and see this for myself. I figured that if it does what people say it does, then it can only help. I also didn't see any downside into trying it, so I went for it. I've been pretty good at regularly meditating, reading, exercising, and using affirmations, but I was curious to add something new into my routine. So, I tried journaling for 30 days, and this is what happened. The last time I was journaling consistently was over 5 years ago. I used to do this on this free app called Penzu. You can look it up if you want. They're still online. And it's basically a free app you can use for journaling. And I used this app on my phone, and I would do this on my way to work or on my way from work, on my commute, because I didn't really have much time in my morning routine to incorporate this, and I really want to go through it and not have to rush so much when my journaling. So I did this during my commute because I wanted to save some time. And this was pre-COVID times, mind you, so I had to be in the office every single day. I also don't remember why exactly I stopped. I think it was just something that happened gradually. It's just I was doing it so regularly, pretty much every day, during my routine and commute, but I just gradually stopped, I guess. And I don't even remember why. I don't think there was really a reason. It was just something that happened. And yeah, fast forward a few years later when I just didn't do it at all. I just haven't journaled in more than 5 years. I actually started journaling a few weeks ago on the advice of my therapist. So she was talking about different coping mechanisms when things go wrong and things don't go according to plan. And she was asking me, what do I normally do when things don't go according to plan? And I mentioned that my coping mechanism is mostly talking to people. So I would call my friends, or I would call my family, my husband, and I would tell them what happened, and I would just kind of rant and go off on what happened and share my thoughts, and I would hear their advice and their opinions. And I really feel like this is such a good way for me to just release my emotions and also just to process everything that happened. So I really enjoy doing it like that. And she said that's a really good coping mechanism, and that's a good tool to be able to release it. But another good tool that she can recommend is actually journaling. And I mentioned, oh yeah, I actually used to journal like several years ago, and I actually did it very regularly then, but I haven't journaled in like more than 5 years now. So she said, yeah, if you're up for it, you can give it a try. So I thought, yeah, why not? I did used to journal very regularly before, so I don't see the harm in trying. And she said it's a really good coping mechanism because it's something that you can basically do at your own time. You don't need to rely on other people to do it, so you can just do it whenever it suits you. There's no like maximum length that you need to do or minimum length that you need to do. You can just go very free flowing according to what you want, or you can do it more structured as you wish. So it seemed like a good idea, and I thought, okay, why not give it a try again? So what were my expectations going into this? I was expecting it to feel weird in the beginning because I haven't done it more than several years, and I was expecting it, like a lot of other habits that I start, to feel a little bit awkward at first, to feel like, what am I doing? Like, how did I do this? And things like that. But I was also expecting it to be not that difficult. I thought, it's something that I can quite easily probably apply to my own life again, because I did do it like several years ago, so it can't be that difficult. And I remembered I enjoyed doing it, and I didn't have any problems with it. I didn't see any issues doing it. It was not out of my comfort zone or anything. The only hesitation that I had in the beginning was that I don't think that I could do it so consistently, and I wasn't sure that I could do something so regularly. I felt like it's probably something that I would do like once in a blue moon, like when I happen to think about it. So it's just not part of my habits or my routine. So it's just, I was just hesitating in the sense of like, I don't think that it was something that I would do so consistently. So as expected, it did take me a couple of tries to be consistent with it and to be comfortable with it. In the beginning, I was feeling really strange, like I don't even know what I'm going to write here, you know? I noticed that I was like editing it in my head already before I was even writing it down. And that made it really difficult to really start on something, or like, I don't know if I should include this, I don't know if I should, you know? I was very much in my head and I was very overthinking as usual. But I noticed that it became easier for me to do once I stopped filtering what I was going to write. So I just typed whatever was in my head at the time, and I didn't really think about, should I include this or should I not include this? I just wrote as I thought, and I typed it in my laptop because it was easier for me to type instead of writing. And I know that there's a lot of people who say, you know, if you write it on paper using a pen, paper very manually, it has a different feeling and it does feel like a little bit more cathartic or something like that. But my thoughts go very fast and it's so difficult for me to keep up with my hands to keep up with my thoughts. So I haven't written manually in a long time since I was in school, and I'm just much more used to typing fast. And so yeah, that's the method that I'm using, and I think it works really great for me. When I started, I was doing it maybe twice or thrice a week because most of the time I just forgot, and I just didn't think that I should do it every single day anyway. My psychologist said too, like, it's not something that's like strict that you need to do every single day. It's fine, you just need to do it when it suits you. So I was just doing it twice or thrice a week. And yeah, because it was not like part of my habits yet, it wasn't part of my routine yet, it was a bit difficult to remember it sometimes. So to combat this, I decided to put it as part of my morning routine. So since my morning routine is already pretty elaborate and I have all these different activities that I do in the morning, I thought it made most sense to include it in my morning routine when my brain's also fresh, when I just woke up and I have all these new thoughts in my head and not much has happened yet. I still feel, you know, fresh. And so I decided to include it into my routine to help me not forget it so much, and that really works because it helps when it's part of something that you do regularly. I also thought that it made most sense for me to include it into my morning routine because if I do forget on that day in the early morning, and I can still remember it during the day, and then maybe I can still journal later on in the day. And this is actually how I got the idea to try it for a month, because I started journaling towards the end of December, and so I thought, why not make it a challenge for me to try to do this every single day in January and try to see an experiment, kind of make this a little project to see how it's going to affect me and what are actually the effects of journaling very regularly. And I was very curious to see what would happen if I make this a consistent part of my routine, and how would this affect me if I did this every single day. I want to be honest and say that I did not do every single day in January. There were days when I just forgot, and there were days when I just had another priority that morning. For instance, I just recognized that I didn't have that much time and I prioritized exercising today because that's what I feel like makes most sense for me in that day. So most of the time when I do that, and I try to journal later on in the day, but as you know, you can forget if you change the time that you do your behavior. So that's what happened. I did have a consistent 5 to 6 times a week of journaling, so I think it's really not that bad. And it's really good considering I was starting at 2 to 3 times a week. So what are the things that I learned from doing this little experiment? So the first thing that I learned was that it really does help to incorporate a certain behavior that you want to incorporate into your routine. And I incorporated it into my morning routine, as I mentioned, and it did really make a difference to my consistency because it was easier for me not to forget it. Unlike when I began, when I just journaled whenever it was convenient for me and I forgot, and I just did it 2 to 3 times a week and compared to the 5 to 6 times a week, it was so much better. The second thing that I learned is that I don't have to rely on other people anymore when I experience setbacks or some problems. And now I have another tool in my kit that I can use to be able to cope. Another way, instead of just relying on other people, that I can be able to process my thoughts. And with journaling, I can just do this anytime I want, anytime that makes sense for me, anytime that's convenient for me. I can do it how I want, when I want, however long I want, without relying on anybody else, which is really nice. And it really helps when I cannot get a hold of someone or some people, and I just need to like release the thoughts that I have in my head. And it's so much better than having it ruminate inside your head, to put it down to paper. I don't have the satisfaction of hearing advice or reactions from the other people when I do this, but I do still gain some valuable insights from myself by writing it down. I see my own thoughts and then I come up with my own insights, and I think about things that, oh yeah, like I didn't think about it that way. And it's so interesting to be able to reflect on that myself. The last thing that I learned is that if you really want to do something, you will make sure that you do it. And if you don't, you'll find a million excuses not to. I learned through this little experiment that I was determined to really journal consistently, so it showed in my results. We won't always feel motivated every single day, and so it's important to use that initial urge that you have to start a project, to be productive, to make it so that your environment is conducive to this, to make it so that your environment will help you with this. And this is what incorporating the behavior into my morning routine has done. Because I incorporated it into my routine, it made it so much easier for me to remember to do the behavior, which is journaling, and it just made it so much easier for me to stay consistent. This is what helped me to do it even if I didn't feel like I had that much time or I didn't have motivation on a certain day. So as for next steps, I'm probably going to try to do this as consistently as I can, maybe like keep the consistency of 5 to 6 days a week. It doesn't have to be every single day for me. It's not something that I want to be too strict on myself about, but it's also not something that I want to do like once in a blue moon. So I do want to have a bit of consistency and regularity, so I will continue incorporating this into my morning routine from now on. I feel like it's a really great tool to use for myself to be able to cope with difficult times, but also to just check in with myself and to be able to even maybe just record memories that I would like to remember for the next days or years to come. I know that I will still talk to people and still, share the things that have happened to me. And when I have some setbacks and problems, I will still use that as a coping tool. But now I also have another tool in my belt that I can use, which is journaling, that I know works well for me and I know that I can use anytime I want. Releasing these thoughts is such a nice way to process things and feel so cathartic instead of just letting it ruminate around in your head. It's also a nice tool to be able to get to know ourselves a little bit better. The next step that I will probably try in the next weeks maybe or months is to try to do the manual journaling. So to try to do pen and paper, really like writing it down. I feel like that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for me because, as I mentioned, my thoughts go very fast and it's so difficult for me to write because I don't write as fast as I used to do when I was studying still. But I feel like with practice, it's probably gonna get better, and I'm really curious to see how that will be and how that can improve or that can change my experience of journaling. And it's just something that I want to try, and if it doesn't work, I'll just go back to how I'm doing it now. So that's it. I hope that my little experiment gave you some good insights and maybe inspired you to also try journaling if you don't do that yet. I'd love to know if any of you journal and how you find it. And if you don't, I'd love to know if you're also planning to try it. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I wish you a great rest of the week. Bye!